Okay, let's dive right into this. I want to start with a question you've probably heard a million times, or at least something like it.
Seems simple enough, right? I mean, it's a question. But what if I told you this is actually a terrible research question? And get this, understanding why it's so bad is basically the secret sauce to unlocking really powerful, meaningful science.
And that's because it gets to the very heart of what research is all about. See, it's not about going in to prove something you already think is true. Not at all. It's about a pure, totally unbiased investigation.
So let's really dig into this first big idea. Research as an investigation. It's all about asking, not telling. This one concept, it completely reframes the entire goal of any study.
You know, a lot of people get this wrong. Research is not about implementing a program to show it works. It's not meant to prove a belief you have. The goal isn't to demonstrate a foregone conclusion. And it's definitely not based on some biased personal story. The moment you set out to prove something, you stop being a researcher. You kind of become a salesperson. Your real job is to follow the evidence wherever it leads, even if it's somewhere you didn't expect. Okay, so if we're supposed to be investigators, how do we get from just a vague idea to a really powerful question? Well, it turns out it comes down to 4 simple but totally essential rules. All right, here they are. 1, it's got to be an actual question. 2, it needs to be unbiased and neutral. 3, you have to be able to test it. And 4, it has to be crystal clear to anyone who reads it. Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds super obvious, right? But honestly, you would be shocked at how many research ideas completely fall apart right here because they're really just biased statements in disguise, or they're so vague you couldn't possibly test them. And this is where the magic happens. Let's do a little question makeover. We're going to take some common, kind of flawed questions and see how we can transform them into real, high-quality research questions. All right, here's our first patient on the operating table. What are the effects of social isolation and loneliness on quality of health in older adults? I mean, it sounds pretty scientific, right? It's got the right buzzwords, but there are some serious problems hiding in plain sight here. Can you spot them?
So here are the big flaws. That word effects, that's a huge red flag. It implies a direct cause and effect relationship, which is super hard to prove. And then you've got quality of health. What does that even mean? It's way too vague. Is it physical health, mental health, happiness? You can't measure it if you can't define it.
So check out the difference here. Instead of that vague first question, look at the new one. To what extent do social isolation and loneliness predict self-reported health status among older adults? See, the fix is all about getting precise. We swapped out the word effects for predict. Now we're not trying to prove cause and effect, we're just asking if there's a measurable statistical connection. That is something we can actually sink our teeth into and test.
Okay, ready for round 2? Let's try another one. Why do parents of ADHD kids not discipline with expectations of obedience? Whoa. This one is a classic trap. It's just loaded with bias right from the get-go. Can you feel it?
So the big flaw here? It's not even about the topic. It's the judgment that's baked right into the wording. This question starts with an assumption that these parents are failing to do something. It assumes they don't discipline properly. That isn't an investigation, folks. That's basically an accusation dressed up as a question. And look at the makeover. Instead of that loaded question, we have, how do parents of children diagnosed with ADHD describe their approaches to discipline and expectations for obedience? See the difference? It's night and day. We've totally removed the judgment, and now the door's wide open for genuine discovery. We're just asking now, not telling. We're letting them tell their story. So, here's the really cool part. Once you've forged a great question like that, the next step, building your hypothesis, becomes almost, well, easy. It practically writes itself. Think of it like this. A good research question is the bridge between your curiosity and your actual method. It's got all the ingredients you need for a testable hypothesis, just sitting there. Your variables, your population, it's all right there, ready to go. And every study really has these 2 competing ideas, 2 sides of the same coin. You've got the null hypothesis, which is basically the default assumption. It's the skeptic in the room saying, nope, nothing's going on here, no connection. Then you have the alternative hypothesis. That's what you, the researcher, are actually testing. It's you saying, you know what? I think there is something going on here. Your whole job is to see if you can find enough evidence to tell that skeptical null hypothesis to take a hike. All right, let's give a hypothesis the same makeover treatment. How about this one? Kids who watch a lot of TV act worse than kids who don't. I mean, we've all heard something like this, right?
But as a research hypothesis, it's full of vague, everyday language that just won't fly.
I mean, think about it. What are the flaws here? What exactly is a lot of TV? And what does acting worse even mean? Hitting? Talking back? Getting bad grades? It's not specific at all. And if you can't measure something, you absolutely cannot test it. End of story.
And boom, here's the fix. We take that sloppy hypothesis and we turn it into this. There is a significant difference in aggression scores between children who watch more than 3 hours of television daily and those who watch less than 1 hour. Now we're talking. We replace those fuzzy terms with concrete, measurable things, aggression scores and specific hours of TV. Now we have something we can actually, finally test.
Okay, as we start to wrap this up, there is one golden rule that ties this entire thing together. Seriously, if you remember one thing, make it this. It will save you from so many headaches down the road.
And that rule is, never decide what statistic to use before your hypothesis is complete. In other words, let your question drive your method, not the other way around. You have to figure out what you want to know before you ever start thinking about how you're going to analyze it. Think of it this way. The question is the blueprint for the house. The statistics, those are just the tools you use to build it. You don't pick your hammer before you know what you're building, right?
So, let's quickly recap the key takeaways here. First, research is an investigation, not a sales pitch. Second, a great question has to be clear, unbiased, and testable. No exceptions. Third, a strong question leads you right to a strong hypothesis. And finally, always figure out the what before you worry about the how. Nail the question and the rest of the process becomes so much clearer.
And that leaves us with one final thought for you to chew on. Think about some common assumption, something you just believe to be true. How would you take that belief and transform it into a neutral, testable, and genuinely powerful research question? Because that transformation, that's where all great investigations begin.